Whenever you try something new, have you ever stopped to listen to yourself when it comes to what you say about how you're going to be able to do it, or your level of expectation about how you're going to go about doing what you're doing, or your outcomes that you're going to get? So today I'm going to talk about exactly that. I'm going to talk about expectation and how our expectation is often how we get our motivation to achieve our results, or our expectation often is heavily influential in the results that we get. So I've experienced this myself on a number of occasions, and I've even changed some of my expectation around things that I've done. So I've updated my models of what I expect I'm capable of and what I can achieve. So around about 2 years ago, I was in a situation where I was crossing the Alaskan range. It was about minus 30. It was quite frozen. There was a fair bit of wind, and a sort of small blizzard was blowing, and I was moving along at night looking to cross the Alaskan range. So I had set out at around about lunchtime with the intent to go to about midnight. At that point I would rest, I'd get a couple hours of sleep, get up around about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and continue on down to the river below the range where I go to that checkpoint, and then sort of refuel, recover and go on my way. So I'd anticipated that I could go to midnight before I would get too tired. So I set out with that expectation in mind, that I was capable until heading to that point before I needed to recover. So as I'm moving along, I'm going quite well. It sort of darkness turns up, the wind picks up, there's a lot of snow drift, and it's really difficult to stay on the trail. And as I go further up, I didn't realise, but there was a fork in the trail. So I'm heading along, I'm sort of just looking down, trying to keep my face out of the wind, trying to keep protected as I can so that I don't have any issues with this wind, continually moving so I can keep up my body heat, and just trying to get through the night more or less. So as I'm going, I wasn't paying a lot of attention, I was just looking at staying on the track. So I ended up drifting to the left at a fork where I should have gone right, and because of the amount of snow drift, it was difficult to see the trail as it was, never alone pick up a fork in the trail. So I'm continuing along and just sort of monitoring my progress, and I start to see that I'm left of where I should be on the trail that I should be taking on my GPS. So I'm continually observing this, and as I'm going along, I'm going for several hours, and I'm sort of starting to drift further and further. And as I stop and look around, I can see the range that I have to go across to get, or the pass I need to go across to get across the Alaskan range, and I'm not going to be able to get to it. I realise that this track is just not going to come back around. It's going to continue heading further up into the mountains. So I have to make a decision then to turn around and backtrack. So I started backtracking, I go down, and it's a couple more hours. This time I'm trying to stay alert because I'm looking for any signs of a path that's veered off to the path that I want to go on to. And I know with the snowdrift, there's not going to be much sign, because anyone that's gone there previously, it's going to have snow gone or cover those tracks. So as I'm going down, fortunately a snow machine or a couple of snowmobiles come up, and we sort of get them to backtrack a little bit for us, and they pick up the track. So we go down, we find the track that we want with a little bit of help and probably some good fortune. Otherwise it's likely I would have been wandering around until daylight and I could start to actually see again. So I get back on the path and I start heading up towards the pass that I want to. So now I'm on the right track, but now it's about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So I've been travelling for a lot longer than what I'd intended to, and because of the conditions, I can't stop. I need to keep moving to stay warm and stay out of the wind. If I stop and sleep somewhere, or I go and try and find a quick sleeping spot, because of the level of fatigue, I'm likely to make mistakes, and mistakes can be costly, and it can turn into a survival situation pretty quickly. So I continue going up the pass. It's quite a heavy ascent, or a steep ascent towards the end. I'm very tired. It's very difficult to maintain concentration. I'm struggling to stay awake, or I'm sort of micro sleeping a lot as I go, just trying to get to the pass so I can sort of reevaluate where I'm at and go again. So at around about 6 or 7 o'clock, I finally summit this pass. I get over the other side, I start to head down. At this time the sun's coming up. So I've spoken about sunlight before, and its rejuvenating effect. So it starts to change the way I function, changes the way I feel, starts to renew me with energy. And so now I have the capacity, or I believe I have the capacity, to go for another 6 or 7 hours and get to the checkpoint down below that I need to get to, where I can now refuel and recover properly. So I go down there, and it's not really an issue. I have enough energy to get down there. I perform a lot better than what I could. But then at the end of that, I realise, or I start to think about, was I limiting my ability that night, or my ability to push through this race, by the expectation that around about midnight I'm going to be too tired to continue? Have I made myself believe that it's going to be too difficult to push overnight, and through that expectation, that's the outcome that I'm looking at? So Post that, I changed my expectation a little bit around what I'm capable of. And further in the race, I find myself at periods where it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and I've been going for a long time and I feel quite comfortable. I'm sort of going along, I could go a lot further, and I just choose to rest when it's appropriate. I find a good spot. So I'm no longer limited by time periods really, or how I feel, because that's all perceptual. And if I have an expectation I'm going to be tired, then that changes the way I perceive that internal feedback, and it makes me feel like I'm tired, and from that I'll actually show signs of fatigue. And this has been supported in the research around stress. So individuals who go into high stress or high challenging periods with the belief that stress doesn't have any negative impact on them come out the other side with no negative residual impacts of that stress. So there's no changes in their health or wellness markers, there's no mental issues around feelings of depression or changes in mental state. They move out the other side, they have a bit of recovery, and they continue moving forward, often in a more positive manner or slightly stronger, because a lot of people believe that once they go through some adversity or a challenge, they come out the other side with more skills as a stronger person to take on more challenge later on, as opposed to those who believe stress or exposure to stress has a negative impact. They'll go through a very similar period of challenge or adversity, and on the other side they actually show signs or biological changes in their markers of reduced wellness, reduced health, changes in their mental health, these sort of things. They will actually have negative changes in their health and wellness based on their expectation that stress is negative for them. And this has also been supported in other research projects which have looked at the impact of believing non-exercise activity or your activity levels during work or non-exercise periods improves your weight loss, and the people that have that expectation have increased weight loss compared to the people that don't have that expectation. So it's been shown quite across a number of variable domains, and it's been shown that expectation really influences our outcome. It's what's known in sort of some aspects as a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we believe something, we look for the information that supports our belief, that influences our behaviours and habits and the way we conduct ourselves, and then we get those outcomes that we expected. Where the beauty of expectation is that we ultimately set our own expectations. So we can go into something believing that we can get a positive outcome, and then we'll filter our results or we'll filter our progress looking for information that supports our belief that we're on a positive path or we're moving in the right direction, and then we get to where we want to go. As opposed, if we have negative expectations, then our self-talk changes, the way we filter the information changes, and we start to look for reinforcing information to show that we're not capable or we're not going to get there. That changes our behaviours, it reduces our commitment, our motivation, and we don't get there. So if we want to improve our outcomes in life, improve our mental strength and our resilience, then we can do that simply by changing our expectations. So if we go into something and we don't know how to do it or we don't quite understand, then we just look at, okay, I'm going to learn through this experience, and once I get to the other side, I'm going to understand how to do similar experiences or get through similar challenges. So we can move in with a little bit of what I've spoken to around before, around curiosity, having an open mindset, understanding that everything is a learning experience, having our expectation about we're capable of learning anything that we need to, and we can get to the other side and we can be a better person than what we are now. So I hope that helps understand a little bit around how expectation can help improve the outcomes that you're getting, so that we can move into these challenges with the right expectation or a positive expectation. It can change the way we see the world, it can change the way that influences our behaviour, so we can start to move in the right direction or in a better direction, start to achieve what we really want to achieve and get the things out of life that we really want to get.